Gracias.
Tú.
In the theater of modern conflict, there are moments that transcend the tactical and become legends of human resolve, brotherhood, and the sheer weight of responsibility. To understand the gravity of what occurred on April 17, 2017, in the rugged landscapes of Afghanistan, one must look past the mechanical roar of jet engines and the flash of explosions. Instead, we must look into the hearts of men caught between the certainty of death and the desperate hope for a miracle from the sky. This is not merely a report of a military engagement. It is a profound study in trust, the terrifying cost of freedom, and the moral weight carried by those who hold the power of life and death in their hands. The day began as many do in a war zone, heavy with tension, but governed by a routine. A task force of U.S. Army Rangers was moving through a small, nondescript town, their boots crunching on the dry earth. These men are among the world's most elite warriors, trained for the impossible. Yet the battlefield is a chaotic master of deception. In an instant, the routine vanished, replaced by the deafening crack of gunfire and the whistle of incoming rockets. The Rangers had walked into a massive, meticulously prepared ambush. Taliban fighters had turned the town into a fortress, occupying multi-story buildings that overlooked every street and alley. From these elevated positions, they rained down a relentless volume of fire. The Rangers were pinned, outmanned, and surrounded on all sides, facing an enemy that held every tactical advantage. In such a moment, the world shrinks. For the soldier on the ground, the universe consists of the few inches of cover they can find and the sound of their brothers shouting over the din of battle. They were fighting for every breath, but they were not alone. High above the chaos, circling in the vast blue expanse, were the guardians of the sky. 2 F-16 Fighting Falcons and an AC-130 gunship responded to the frantic calls for help. The air crews worked with a ferocity that matched the desperation on the ground, unleashing everything they had. In a display of firepower that is almost unheard of in modern air support, the gunship and the initial jets completely emptied their magazines and bomb racks. Multiple buildings were leveled, and the immediate threat was suppressed, but the enemy was numerous and dug in deep. This leads us to a critical moral juncture in our story, the limit of resources. Even the most powerful war machines have an end to their strength. As the first wave of aircraft ran dry of ammunition and fuel, they were forced to break contact and return to base. For the Rangers remaining on the ground, this was a terrifying prospect. The silence left by the departing jets was soon filled again by the emboldened cries of the insurgents. The clock was ticking, and the Rangers were running out of time. It is here that we meet our central figures, Captains Craig Andrell and Adam Furman, 2 F-16 pilots at a nearby base who had been listening to the battle unfold over their radios. Listening to a battle you are not yet part of is a unique kind of torture for a pilot. Andrell and Furman heard the desperation in the voices of the Joint Terminal Attack Controllers, or JTACs, who were on the ground with the Rangers, directing the strikes. When they heard the report that an AC-130 had actually run out of ammunition, they knew the situation was catastrophic. In the world of aviation, an AC-130 running dry is a signal that the fight has reached a scale of intensity that defies description. They didn't wait for the official scramble order. They were already in their cockpits, pre-flighting their jets, anticipating the call they knew was coming. This is the first lesson of the day. True leadership and partnership mean anticipating the needs of your brothers before they even have to ask. When the order finally came, Andrell and Furman tore down the runway, the afterburners of their F-16s pushing them into the sky with a sense of urgency that blurred the lines of safety. In a staggering 8 minutes of leaving the ground, they were over the target. This speed was not just a feat of engineering, it was a testament to the pilot's will. Every second they saved in the air was a second that a ranger on the ground didn't have to face a bullet alone. As they arrived, the JTAC on the ground sent a digital message to Andrell's cockpit. The request was grim and massive, a 2,000-pound JDAM, a Joint Direct Attack munition. This is not a surgical tool, it is a hammer of God, designed to flatten entire structures. The target was a multi-story building from which the Taliban were hammering the Rangers with heavy weapons. In a standard mission, a pilot would perform a dry pass, a flyby, to visually confirm the target and ensure there were no friendly forces or civilians in the blast radius. It's a vital step to prevent the tragedy of fratricide. But on this day, the luxury of time had been spent. The Rangers were dying. Here we witness the ultimate expression of trust. Andrell could not see the building clearly through the smoke and the speed of his jet. He had to decide, do I take the time to be sure, or do I trust the man on the ground who is currently under fire? He chose trust. He released the 2,000-pound bomb on his very first pass. The weapon guided itself through the haze, striking the building with a force that shook the very earth. Over the radio, the voice of the JTAC came through, breathless. Good hits, good hits. The building was gone. The threat from that sector had been neutralized. This moment teaches us about the weight of professional expertise. When the stakes are at their highest, you must be able to rely on the competence and integrity of your team without hesitation. But the battle was far from over. For the next hour, Andrell and Furman became a roving door of destruction. They made pass after pass, dropping every bomb they carried, and then diving low to use their 20mm Vulcan cannons, strafing the enemy positions until their barrels were hot and their ammunition bins were empty. Even then, they didn't leave. They stayed overhead, using their presence and their sensors to provide eyes in the sky for the men below, while they managed their fuel with surgical precision. When it became clear that they needed to refuel, Andrell made a decision that exemplified the whatever-it-takes mentality. He realized that even if he refueled in the air, he would still be returning to the fight with no bombs. He knew there was a spare F-16 sitting on the flight line back at base, the squadron's flagship, a jet painted in distinctive tiger stripes, usually reserved for VIPs and ceremonies. He radioed ahead, landed his empty jet, sprinted across the tarmac, and climbed into the tiger-striped fighter. In 39 minutes, a fraction of the time usually required for such a transition, he was back in the air and heading toward the fight again. This second sortie was a mirror of the first's intensity. Again, the call came for the heaviest ordnance. Again, Andrell trusted the voice on the ground and leveled another stronghold. The sky was filled with the smoke of 1,000 explosions, a testament to a town that had become a crucible of fire. By the time the original jets and the gunship returned from their own refueling, the tide had finally turned. The Rangers were able to break the ambush and move to safety. When we analyzed the sheer volume of ordnance used, multiple aircraft completely emptied of thousands of rounds and dozens of bombs, we realized the magnitude of the threat those Rangers faced. It was an unfathomable amount of firepower concentrated on a single coordinate. But the real story isn't the bombs. The real story is the human spirit. It is the story of the pilot who wouldn't go home, the crew chiefs who worked like lightning on the ground, and the Rangers who held their line against impossible odds. The moral lesson of this report is one of profound interconnectedness. None of us are strong as all of us. The F-16 is a marvel, but it is a hollow shell without a pilot willing to risk everything for a man he may never meet. The Rangers are the bravest of the brave, but even they have a breaking point where they must look to the heavens for salvation. This event reminds us that freedom is not an abstract concept. It is a tangible reality maintained by the sweat, blood, and split-second decisions of individuals who choose to be their brother's keeper. As we reflect on these events, let us move forward with a renewed sense of gratitude. Let us remember that the peace we enjoy is often guarded by those who have seen the darkest of days so that we don't have to. The next time you see the flag or hear of a distant conflict, think of the tiger-striped jet in the Afghan sky. Think of the trust between the man on the ground and the man in the air. And most importantly, think about your next move, how you can live a life worthy of the sacrifices made by those who gave their today for your tomorrow. This is the true price of freedom, paid in full, with honor and a resolve that can never be